What's up, Wrestling-verse family? Welcome back to the channel where we break down the biggest, most shocking moments in professional wrestling. I'm your host, and today we're diving into what might be the most controversial decision Triple H has made since taking creative control of WWE. Jacob Fatu, the Samoan Werewolf, the absolute unit who's been terrorizing WWE for months, has just been fired by Triple H. And the reason? What he did to Jey Uso is beyond unforgivable. But before we get into this insane story, make sure you smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring that notification bell because this story has more twists than a steel cage match. Let's rewind and set the stage, Wrestling-verse family. For months, we've watched Jacob Fatu dominate WWE programming. This man is a legitimate monster, 6'1", 270 pounds of pure, unadulterated destruction. The Samoan Werewolf didn't just arrive in WWE, he exploded onto the scene like a human wrecking ball. Since his debut, Fatu has been positioned as one of the most dangerous competitors in the entire company. Triple H saw something special in this third-generation Samoan wrestler, the nephew of WWE Hall of Famer Rikishi, cousin to Roman Reigns, and part of the legendary Anoa'i family dynasty that has dominated professional wrestling for decades. But here's where things get really interesting. The Bloodline saga has been the backbone of WWE storytelling for years now. Roman Reigns built an empire, Jimmy and Jey Uso stood by his side as the twin engines of destruction, and when Solo Sikoa stepped up to claim leadership of the new Bloodline, Jacob Fatu became his ultimate weapon. The chemistry between these family members was supposed to be unbreakable. These weren't just storyline allies. These are real family members who've grown up together, trained together, and bled for this business together. The Anoa'i family tree runs deep in professional wrestling, and their unity was supposed to be their greatest strength. But something went horribly wrong behind the scenes, Wrestling-verse family. And what Jacob Fatu did to Jey Uso crossed every line imaginable, both as a performer and as family. Now, I need to be careful here because we're dealing with real people's lives and careers, but the reports coming out of WWE headquarters paint a picture that's absolutely devastating. Multiple sources within the company are saying that during what was supposed to be a routine backstage segment, Jacob Fatu went completely off script. We all know Jey Uso's incredible journey over the past few years. This man went from being just another tag team wrestler to becoming one of the most beloved babyfaces in all of WWE. His breakaway from Roman Reigns, his emotional struggles with family loyalty, and his eventual rise to capture the World Heavyweight Championship at WrestleMania 41, it's been pure storytelling gold. Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble, pointing at that WrestleMania sign, and then making Gunther tap out for his first World Championship was one of the most emotional moments in recent WWE history. The crowd was on their feet, grown men were crying, and for 51 beautiful days, Jey Uso stood at the mountaintop of sports entertainment. But even after losing the title, Jey remained one of WWE's most valuable assets. His "YEET" catchphrase became a cultural phenomenon. Kids were doing the gesture at school, celebrities were posting it on social media, and WWE merchandise featuring Jey was flying off the shelves faster than they could restock it. So when Jacob Fatu allegedly laid hands on Jey Uso in a way that went far beyond what was scripted, it sent shockwaves through the entire WWE locker room. Wrestling-verse family, what I'm about to tell you is based on multiple reports from different wrestling news outlets, and while I can't confirm every detail, the pattern that's emerging is absolutely shocking. According to sources close to the situation, Jacob Fatu had been expressing frustration with his creative direction for weeks. Despite being positioned as Solo Sikoa's enforcer and holding the United States Championship, Fatu apparently felt like he was being held back. He wanted main event spots, he wanted to be the guy, not just another heavy in someone else's storyline. The tension reportedly came to a head during a backstage segment that was being filmed for an upcoming episode of SmackDown. The script called for a tense family meeting between Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, and the Uso twins. It was supposed to be a verbal confrontation that would set up future storylines and maybe some light physical contact. But Jacob Fatu apparently had other plans. Multiple witnesses describe a situation that quickly spiraled out of control. What started as scripted dialogue became a real argument. Voices were raised, professionalism went out the window, and then, according to these reports, Jacob Fatu did something that shocked everyone in the room. He allegedly grabbed Jey Uso in a way that was completely unscripted, completely unprofessional, and completely unacceptable. This wasn't a work shoot or creative improvisation, this was a trained, professional wrestler using his size and strength advantage against a colleague in a way that crossed every line in the WWE Code of Conduct. Now here's where Paul Levesque, Triple H, shows exactly why he's the right person to lead WWE's creative future, wrestling vs. family. The game has built his entire post-wrestling career on professionalism, respect, and creating an environment where talent can thrive. When he took over creative control from Vince McMahon, one of his first priorities was establishing clear boundaries about what would and wouldn't be tolerated backstage. Triple H has always been a wrestler's wrestler. He understands the physical and emotional demands of this business, he knows how creative frustrations can build up, and he's generally been willing to work with talent to find solutions. But there's one thing Paul Levesque will not tolerate: putting hands on a colleague in an unprofessional manner. The response was swift and decisive. Within hours of the incident, Jacob Fatu was called into a meeting with Triple H, Nick Khan, and several other WWE executives. By all accounts, it was a short conversation. You have to understand, wrestling vs. family, WWE is a publicly traded company worth billions of dollars. They have sponsors to answer to, shareholders to protect, and a mainstream audience that expects professional behavior from their performers. When someone steps out of line in a way that could damage the company's reputation or put other talent at risk, the response has to be immediate and severe. Jacob Fatu's termination wasn't just about what happened in that one moment with Jey Uso. It was about sending a message to the entire roster: no matter how talented you are, no matter what family you come from, no matter how much money you might make the company, there are lines you cannot cross. The ripple effects of this decision are going to be massive, wrestling vs. family. Jacob Fatu wasn't just another mid-card talent who could be quietly released without anyone noticing. This man was positioned as a future main event star, he held championship gold, and he was a central part of WWE's most important ongoing storyline. From a creative standpoint, WWE now has to completely rewrite months of planned storylines. The Bloodline saga, which has been the company's most successful long-term narrative in years, suddenly has a giant Jacob Fatu-shaped hole in it. Solo Sikoa loses his most intimidating enforcer, the family dynamic gets completely scrambled, and creative has to figure out how to explain his absence without damaging the overall story. But the implications go far beyond just storylines. The Anoa'i family is wrestling royalty. We're talking about a family that includes The Rock, Roman Reigns, Yokozuna, Umaga, and dozens of other legendary performers. Jacob Fatu being fired for unprofessional conduct toward another family member creates tension that goes way beyond WWE programming. Think about the position this puts everyone in. Jimmy Uso has to continue working with Solo Sikoa, knowing that Solo's former right-hand man was fired for what he did to Jimmy's twin brother. Roman Reigns, who's been trying to rebuild his relationship with the Usos, now has to navigate a situation where family loyalty and professional obligations are completely at odds. And what about Jey Uso himself? This man has worked incredibly hard to establish himself as a top-tier performer, and now he's at the center of a controversy that could follow him for the rest of his career. Every interview, every backstage segment, every interaction with other Samoan wrestlers is going to be viewed through the lens of this incident. Wrestling vs. family, let's talk dollars and cents for a moment, because that's ultimately what drives these decisions in corporate WWE. Jacob Fatu merchandise was selling exceptionally well. His entrance music was getting streaming numbers that rivaled main event talent. Social media engagement around his character was through the roof, especially among younger demographics that WWE desperately wants to capture and retain. But here's the thing about modern WWE, they've learned from past mistakes about tolerating problematic behavior just because someone draws money. The company went through years of negative publicity dealing with talent who couldn't conduct themselves professionally, and they've made it clear that no amount of revenue is worth damaging their corporate reputation. Triple H and Nick Khan have been building a culture where talent knows exactly what's expected of them. Clear guidelines, professional standards, and immediate consequences for crossing the line. It's a business model that prioritizes long-term stability over short-term profits, and Jacob Fatu's firing is the perfect example of that philosophy in action. Think about it this way: WWE has hundreds of talented wrestlers who would kill for the opportunity Jacob Fatu just threw away. Why keep someone who can't conduct themselves professionally when you could give that spot to someone who will respect the opportunity and treat their colleagues with dignity? The message this sends to the rest of the roster is crystal clear: talent and family connections will only get you so far. At the end of the day, you're an employee of a major corporation, and corporate standards apply to everyone. The Bloodline storyline has been WWE's crown jewel for years now, wrestling vs. family. From Roman Reigns' dominant heel run to the emotional family drama to Solo Sikoa's rise as the new tribal chief, this has been appointment television that's kept fans invested week after week. Jacob Fatu was supposed to be the next evolution of that story. His addition to Solo's faction was meant to add a new layer of intimidation and family complexity. The visual of this absolute unit standing behind Solo Sikoa was money in the bank, and WWE Creative had months of storylines planned around his presence. Now they have to pivot completely. Solo Sikoa suddenly looks a lot less intimidating without his enforcer. The power balance between the new bloodline and potential challengers has shifted dramatically. And WWE has to find a way to explain Jacob Fatu's absence without breaking the fourth wall or damaging the overall narrative. But here's the fascinating part: this could actually make the Bloodline story even more compelling. Real-life family drama bleeding into storylines has always been wrestling gold. The fact that Jacob Fatu's firing creates legitimate tension within the Anoa'i family gives WWE writers something authentic to work with. Imagine the possibilities: Solo Sikoa having to address his former enforcer's behavior. Jimmy and Jey Uso dealing with the aftermath of what happened to Jey. Roman Reigns potentially being forced to choose sides between different branches of his family tree. This real-life controversy could fuel storylines for months if handled correctly. Wrestling vs. family, Jacob Fatu's firing sends ripples far beyond just WWE. Every major wrestling promotion is watching this situation closely, because it establishes precedent for how companies should handle talent who cross professional boundaries. AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan, they're all taking notes about WWE's zero-tolerance approach to unprofessional conduct. In an industry that's historically been pretty loose about backstage behavior, WWE is setting a new standard that other companies will likely have to match. This is especially important as wrestling continues to go mainstream. With WWE on Netflix, AEW on major television networks, and wrestling content reaching broader audiences than ever before, companies can't afford to have talent acting unprofessionally behind the scenes. The days of the Wild West backstage culture are over. Modern wrestling is corporate entertainment, and corporate standards apply. Jacob Fatu found that out the hard way, but his firing might ultimately make the entire industry more professional and sustainable. Think about young wrestlers coming up through the system now. They're seeing that talent and family connections won't protect you if you can't conduct yourself professionally. That's a valuable lesson that could prevent similar incidents from happening in the future. Wrestling vs. family, beyond all the business analysis and storyline implications, we can't forget that these are real people with real families and real consequences. Jacob Fatu just lost what was probably going to be the biggest opportunity of his professional wrestling career. WWE was positioning him for main event runs, championship programs, and WrestleMania moments that most wrestlers can only dream about. All of that is gone now because of one moment of poor judgment. But we also can't forget about Jey Uso in all of this. Whatever happened in that backstage segment, Jey is the one who was allegedly victimized. He's the one who has to live with whatever Jacob Fatu did, and he's the one who might face questions about this incident for the rest of his career. The wrestling business is incredibly small, and these two men are going to cross paths again, whether in WWE, on the independent scene, or just at family gatherings. The Anoa'i family is going to have to figure out how to move forward from this situation, and that's going to require forgiveness, accountability, and probably a lot of difficult conversations. This is why professionalism matters so much in wrestling. These aren't just characters playing roles, they're real people who have to work together, trust each other, and sometimes put their physical safety in each other's hands. When that trust gets broken, it affects everyone involved. So where does WWE go from here, wrestling vs. family? In the short term, they have to completely restructure their SmackDown programming. Solo Sikoa needs a new enforcer, the Bloodline storyline needs to be adjusted, and WWE Creative has to figure out how to maintain momentum without one of their key players. But longer term, this could actually strengthen WWE's position in the wrestling landscape. By showing that no one is above professional standards, Triple H has established a culture that should attract top talent who want to work in a respectful, professional environment. The message to wrestlers around the world is clear: WWE will give you opportunities to reach heights you never imagined, but you have to earn and maintain that opportunity through professional conduct. It's a standard that should make the entire company stronger. As for Jacob Fatu himself, this isn't necessarily the end of his wrestling career. He's incredibly talented, he comes from wrestling royalty, and there are other promotions that might be willing to give him a second chance. But he's going to have to prove that he's learned from this experience and can conduct himself professionally going forward. As for Jacob Fatu himself, this isn't necessarily the end of his wrestling career. He's incredibly talented, he comes from wrestling royalty, and there are other promotions that might be willing to give him a second chance. But he's going to have to prove that he's learned from this experience and can conduct himself professionally going forward. The wrestling business has a long history of redemption stories. Wrestlers who've made mistakes, learn from them, and come back stronger than ever. Whether Jacob Fatu can write that kind of comeback story remains to be seen, but the door isn't completely closed on his future in the industry. Wrestling vs. family, Jacob Fatu's firing is a watershed moment for WWE and professional wrestling as a whole. It shows that Triple H is serious about maintaining professional standards, that no one is above accountability, and that the wrestling business is evolving into a more corporate, structured environment. The ripple effects of this decision will be felt for months, maybe years to come. WWE's creative plans have been completely upended, the Anoa'i family dynamics have been forever changed, and the entire wrestling industry has been put on notice about professional conduct. But ultimately, this might be exactly what wrestling needed. Clear standards, immediate consequences, and a culture that prioritizes professionalism over everything else. It's a new era for WWE, and Jacob Fatu's firing might be the moment that defines how business is done going forward. What do you think about Triple H's decision, wrestling vs. family? Was firing Jacob Fatu the right call, or should WWE have found another way to handle this situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, make sure you're subscribed for more breaking news and analysis, and I'll see you in the next video where we'll continue following this story as it develops. This has been your host, and remember, in the wrestling verse, anything can happen, and usually does. Keep wrestling, family. Don't forget to smash that like button if this video helped you understand this crazy situation. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our latest wrestling news and analysis. Check out these other videos about the Bloodline saga, and we'll see you next time on Wrestling vs. CC.